Well, in compliance with President Donald Trump's executive order, hundreds of Trump supporters who had been serving prison sentences for participating in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol have now been freed. This comes after the new president pardoned more than 1,500 people, including some who assaulted police officers. The Federal Bureau of Prisons said 211 people had been released from federal facilities following the order. Trump's sweeping pardon, which went farther than his allies had signaled they expected, drew condemnation from police who battled the mob, their families, and lawmakers, including some of the president's fellow Republicans. The decision was also criticized by the Fraternal Order of Police, the largest police union in the U.S. that had endorsed Trump in the 2024 election. And for more on this, let's cross over now to California and speak with Bob Mulholland, who has been a Democratic National Committee member for 28 years, from 1992 to 2020. He's also been a delegate to 13 national conventions so far. Bob, you've been around for quite some time.
Yes.
Let's start. Glad to have you. Let's start with what you make generally, what you make of the slew of executive orders that Donald Trump signed on the first day in his office.
Well, Trump has decided to what we call flood the zone, make so many announcements that you overwhelm the media, you overwhelm the public. But as you showed on there about the birthright, that the federal courts will overthrow that right away. Trump is not a king. He cannot overturn the U.S. Constitution. However, Trump sees a political message in that, telling his people, most of his supporters, we're no longer going to allow these migrants, these foreigners. You know, Nikki Haley, who ran against President Trump, and her parents were neither U.S. citizens, so she, what the Republicans call an anchor baby. But the 14th Amendment will prevail. But everything else, especially the pardons of those who beat up police officers. And I'll remind your listeners, within 24 hours of January 6, 2021, 5 Capitol police officers died. They didn't die because they were home having dessert. They died because they were beaten up by the people that Trump now has pardoned. And those officers now have to worry about some of these thugs coming after them to get even, because these police officers testified in court against them, sending some of them to prison for 18 or 22 years. So it's a deplorable time in America, but we will prevail.
Because of the fact that even some Republicans are speaking up against the pardon, even the Speaker Johnson and the Vice President, J.D. Vance, had said on television that for those who protested, yeah, they can be set free. But for those who engage in criminal activities, like beating up the police, they will face the law. But here you have Trump doing otherwise. What do you make of the contrary views from Republicans?
Trump, I don't know how many times he said till death do us part. Trump, like in the campaign, promised $2 a gallon gasoline. Trump in the campaign promised the Ukraine-Russian war would be over on day one. Trump just says a lot of things because he understands that American people have short memories. But in this case, the vice president, just a week before the swearing in, was on national television and said, no, Trump would not pardon the ones convicted of violence. So J.D. Vance was thrown under the bus by his own boss. This is going to cause problems. Elon Musk is now complaining about Trump. So I think Trump is in over his head, and ultimately he'll end up like Nixon and maybe have to leave office. You cannot think you can take all the power of 3 different branches of government, legal, legislative, and presidential, and be all yours. And Trump thinks that, and it's a big mistake by Trump.
What about the court actions? He's begun to already face some coalition, particularly on the birthright issue, which has to do with the Constitution and the Congress. What about the actions taken by some lawsuits?
Well, obviously, and you showed them the California Attorney General Rob Bonta, who I've known for years. They all have been ready because Trump in the campaign said he'd be a dictator, and he talked about the birthright. I think Trump's grandparents came from Germany, so they weren't citizens when they got over here or had their son, who's Trump's father. Trump at one point even said his father was born in Germany, but actually his father was not. But I think these court cases will, or at least on the birthright, will be very, very quick. You cannot go to a federal court, any federal court in America, and find a judge that says, yeah, a president can overturn the U.S. Constitution. Because if you don't stop Trump here, Trump may look at some of the other parts of the Constitution and quote unquote issue an executive order and say they no longer count because I'm president.
Well, I don't know how you want to take this. Some have said that why he was encouraged to do what he did with the 1,500 plus that he has released was because in Biden's last days, he released people like Fauci, that encouraged him to do what he did. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I think you pointed out the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed Trump, and now they're denouncing Trump. This is a very different situation. Every president makes pardons, and particularly President Biden pardoned several thousand of people who were in prison because of some drug offense that with today's law, they would not even be in prison. So that was the right thing. Trump also promised that he would get even with all his political opponents. So President Biden preempted and pardoned a number of political people, including the members of the committee that voted to impeach him. So that is a normal process in America. But January 6th was just a few years ago. And the American people see it on TV, especially now that Trump has pardoned it. And they're upset that how could you pardon somebody who broke in to the U.S. Capitol, beat up police officers, and now tell them to go home? If I had been in charge of security, they would have all been mowed down with an assault rifle. The same rule applies to the White House. If thousands of people come over the gates of the White House, they'll be mowed down by assault rifles. And for some reason, the Democrats didn't have assault rifles there, even though they knew there'd be a few hundred. Turns out to be thousands. So it's a difficult time for America, but we lived through Nixon and we'll live through Trump.
How much more difficult or otherwise is it going to be for the entire America with Trump seemingly stoking economic wars against countries like China, Canada, Mexico with tariffs? And who's going to pay for the tariffs anyway? Some experts are saying it's going to come back to Americans.
Yeah, I served in Vietnam, and when I heard Trump say he may use the military to take Greenland and Panama, I thought, my God, this guy, Trump is out of control here. Panama is a sovereign nation. We cannot send military and invade Panama. And Greenland it's been there under the control of Denmark. And that's just another interesting thing. It's this chaos of Trump. After Trump's first 4 years, the American people voted Trump out to put Biden in. They were just tired of the chaos and the turmoil. And I think what's already happening in the first few days, I think many American people who voted for Trump are now going to say, oh no, I thought he'd be different. More chaos, more turmoil. And if Trump starts a war with somebody after saying, oh, I'll be the peacemaker, it's going to be very difficult for him. And I predict that in 2026, next year, the Democrats will retake the House. And if Trump continues this type of behavior, he'll be impeached again by the U.S. House.
What makes you confident that the Democrats will take the House again next year?
Historically, that's what happens in American presidential. For instance, President Obama got elected in 2008, and us Democrats lost 63 House seats in 2010, even though Obama had saved the economy, had saved the U.S. auto industry, because we had this serious recession from the collapse of the financial thing. That it's only, I think, like 3 or 4 votes right now. So we will retake the House. A lot of independents, people who are not Democrats, not Republicans, who vote somebody in 2 years say, okay, time to vote against that guy just to show him that he or she is not in there forever. And, if we don't win the House in 2026, then it's just another failure of the Democratic Party. And we certainly lost the presidential race this time. Trump didn't win it. We lost it. We ran a lousy campaign.
Yeah, lousy campaign, and some were talking about the communication of the Democrats, particularly to the young age, that communication needs to be tweaked. That was where the mistake. But before I let you go, let me just quote what Chuck Schumer said. Chuck Schumer said, I hope I get it. When Nancy Pelosi said, calls it an outrageous insult to America's justice system, talking about the justice. And then Chuck Schumer says, Donald Trump is ushering in a golden age for people that break the law and attempt to overthrow the government. These were quotes from your party members, Chuck Schumer and Pelosi.
Yes, Chuck's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, and I think we have about 47 members. The Republicans have 53. I think even Chuck Schumer, who's been around for decades in politics, is probably a little shocked by the behavior of Trump. You know, Trump's people said he would not pardon people convicted of assaulting police officers, and the way Trump goes after women. And Nigeria should get ready for blacks coming back, because Trump has a very strong distaste for blacks. And if he finds any Nigerians in America illegally, they'll be put on a plane back to Nigeria. We're in for a rough time, trade-wise, economically, militarily, and diplomatically. And it's just sad.
We'll see how America wades through the waves of the storm of Trump's 2.0. Bob, we hope to speak with you again sometime. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.